The 50-30-20 rule sounds straightforward, but why does it feel so complicated when you try to use it? On paper, it sounds simple. 50% needs, 30% wants, 20% savings. But once you try to apply it in real life, you realize there's more to it than most people talk about. In this video, I'm going to break down 6 places where people tend to get tripped up and how to overcome each of them. The rule itself isn't bad. In fact, it's one of the simplest budgeting frameworks out there, but there's more to this rule than most people realize. And if you miss the small details, the rule starts to feel restrictive, confusing, or ineffective. For those of you who don't know, the 50-30-20 rule is a budgeting framework that divides your take-home pay into 3 categories. 50% for needs, which are essential expenses, 30% for wants, which are things that improve your life but aren't required, 20% for savings, which are financial goals. That's the main structure. Now let's talk about where people go wrong. I remember when I signed my first employment contract, $120,000 a year. I was thrilled about that massive $10,000 per month payday. But then I got my first paycheck. Guess how much I actually got? Less than $5,000 for the month. My salary essentially catfished me. And that's the first place people tend to get tripped up. They run the 50-30-20 rule using the number on their contract. If you base your percentages on gross income before taxes and whatnot, your budget will never feel right because you're building your budget around money that was never yours to begin with. The 50-30-20 rule is not based on gross income, but net income. Your net income is a number that actually hits your bank account or your take-home pay. This is the only number that you have control over, so your starting point isn't your salary, it's the number you see on your direct deposit. If you stop making minimum credit card payments, what happens? Late fees, interest, damage to your credit score. Does that sound optional? Or is it a survival expense? Most people put minimum debt payments in the 20% savings category. They tell themselves, well, I'm paying off debt, that counts as saving. Not quite. Minimum payments aren't necessarily financial goals, they're survival. This means that minimum payments, whether it's credit card, car loan, or mortgage, belongs in the 50% needs bucket. The 20% category is for building your future, like retirement investing and emergency funds. If you treat the minimums like savings, you're artificially inflating your progress. You make it seem like you're doing better than you actually are. It's like guys lying about their height on dating apps. 5'10" rounds up to 6 foot. So you must categorize this debt repayment properly. Minimums belong in the 50% needs bucket, and extra payments can go into the 20% savings bucket. But let's be real, don't just sit on the minimums. If you aren't paying your credit cards off in full every month, you're just handing the bank free money while they charge you 25% interest, keeping you broke. There was one night my power went out. No internet, no lights, no AC. Then I realized if the power isn't back by morning, I couldn't work. That's when it hit me. In the 21st century, certain things that used to feel optional aren't entirely optional anymore. For most people, things like a basic phone plan and internet connection are not luxuries, but needs. They're functional requirements for work, school, and life. But here's where it gets tricky. Netflix, Spotify, gym memberships, these feel routine, but are they really needs? Look, I'm not saying don't work out and get fat, but maybe instead of Equinox, try Planet Fitness. Okay, never mind. Maybe LA Fitness would be better. A lot of people quietly move subscriptions into the needs bucket because they're so used to paying for them, and slowly that 50% bucket expands, not because life got more expensive, but because the categorization got blurry. To determine if they are needs, you can ask a simple question. If my income went to 0 tomorrow, is this expense required to keep me alive or get me back into the workforce? If the answer is no, it's probably a want. In my college days, I used to spend 1.5 hours commuting each way in a packed subway with sweaty finance bros, construction workers, and an occasional rat. Why would I do that to myself? Because I earned very little, so I had to live at home. Even when I went into the workforce, I did the same thing, commuting over an hour each way just so I don't have to pay rent. When I first started, I made barely over $40,000 a year on paper. As you know, the take-home pay was way less. What's my point? In some cities, rent alone can be easily 40 to 50% of your take-home pay. So when someone hears 50% for needs, their reaction is, that's impossible. And this is where people think the rule is broken. But it's not broken. It's a reality check. If your needs are 70%, no amount of cutting lattes is going to fix a rent problem that big. That's like trying to bail out a sinking Titanic with a shot glass. So you must make a massive change in your life. Sometimes the solution is reducing your expenses, like I did living at home. Sometimes it's increasing income. But you can't just ignore the red flag and shrug off a 70% needs bucket. To survive long term, you must adapt. When my income more than doubled over a few years, I had a choice. Upgrade everything or keep things mostly the same. I could live in a $2,000 a month waterfront view apartment complex or live at home and save that money. Here's what people assume. As I earn more, I'll just keep spending 30% on wants. But if you earn $200,000 a year, you're spending $60,000 a year on toys. Do you really need that much? Or would you rather use that extra $20,000 or $30,000 to build yourself some FU money? Look, retirement feels 100 years away, but having cash in the bank means you have the power to quit a toxic job, move to a new city, or travel whenever you want without asking for permission. At higher income levels, blowing 30% on toys doesn't make you look rich. It just traps you in a hamster wheel where you have to keep working just to pay for stuff you don't even use. I chose to save and invest, and thank God I did. Otherwise, I would have been in some deep stuff when I got laid off last November. The way I look at it is this. Just because you have a bigger shovel doesn't mean you should dig a deeper hole. This rule isn't meant to lock your wants at 30% forever. It's a starting framework. As income rises, savings should ideally rise faster than lifestyle. Otherwise, one unexpected event and you're pulled into a downward spiral. Have you ever followed a budget to the dollar, hitting your want allowance perfectly, yet you still feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck? Many people look at that 30% and treat it like a spending target. But the 50-30-20 rule isn't a mandatory spending target, it's a boundary. When you treat that 30% as a pre-approved shopping spree, rather than a limit to stay under, you're not budgeting, you're just justifying lifestyle creep. That's like eating a whole chocolate cake just because it's in the fridge and you don't want the shelf space to go to waste. The priority should be needs first, savings second, wants get what's left. This is the biggest misunderstanding. People treat it like a spending target, but the rule is not a spending license. Most people make the mistake of thinking they won the game when everything adds up to 100%, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Spending exactly 100% of your paycheck is like driving a car at 100 miles per hour with no brakes and the hood up. Everything we just talked about is completely useless if you aren't prepared for disaster. The 20% category isn't just for retirement someday. It has to start with protection. If you don't fix this one structural flaw today, your next unexpected bill won't just be an annoyance. It will be the end of your entire financial plan. That's why I made this breakdown on how to correctly build your safety net. If you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.